What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mom's Dinner. My name is Susie Weinrich. Here, we're helping you feel successful at dinner time with super simple dinner recipes. We post a new recipe video every Tuesday, so you can come back here for a new dinner idea that you can get on the table that night. If that sounds good to you, we would love to have you subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. So today we are diving headfirst into comfort food season, and we're gonna make a creamy chicken stew with homemade dumplings. Like the little bread dumplings. Oh, they're fluffy and tender and so good. They cook in a flavorful chicken stew, so they just have an extra layer of flavor. And I'm gonna share with you through this recipe video all the tips and tricks to, number one, make really flavorful chicken stew, and number two, to make super fluffy and tender dumplings, that you're gonna love. So stick around today. We're making creamy chicken stew with homemade fluffy dumplings. To make this recipe, you definitely wanna have a very large Dutch oven or pot because this makes a ton of chicken stew and then you add the dumplings on top. So place your large pot over about medium-high heat. Add a tablespoon of olive oil or cooking oil, and then we're gonna add a mirepoix, which is basically a mixture of 1 yellow onion diced, 2 cups of carrots peeled and cut into about 1/2-inch pieces, and 1.5 cups of celery, also cut into about 1/2-inch pieces. You just want to saute that until the celery and the carrots start to soften. Now you're gonna add in 3 chopped garlic cloves, and then this is where we start to build the flavor of the chicken stew. We're gonna add 2 teaspoons of chicken base. I always use the Better Than Bouillon brand. It seems to be really consistent, and you can see it's kind of a paste form and it comes in a jar. You'll find it in the soup aisle at the grocery store. It is super flavorful. And if you make any kind of chicken stew or chicken soup off of the Mom's Dinner YouTube or website, it's gonna have this in it. Now we're gonna season this up. We're gonna add 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric powder. Now just get that all stirred together so that the seasonings coat all the veggies. Now we're gonna add a couple bay leaves, and I always find that I have some bay leaves in there that are kind of crumbled up, so I always pour them out and try to find the ones that are kind of whole. So you can do 1 or 2 bay leaves to cook in there. I had smaller ones, so I did 2. Now we're gonna add 32 ounces of chicken broth or chicken stock. Mine is really dark in color, but I promise you it is chicken stock. Then add 1.5 cups of water and get that stirred together. We're gonna let the veggies simmer for about 20 minutes in the chicken broth. They're gonna soften up and be perfect. While that's happening, we're gonna go ahead and make the dumplings. So let's start by measuring out all of our ingredients. You need just an all-purpose flour, and we're gonna use 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I've got a 1/2 cup measure because my whole cup is in the dishwasher. So we're gonna do 4. There's 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Now we're gonna need 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. That's gonna add just the right amount of flavor to your dumplings. Then we're gonna need 1 tablespoon, get my tablespoon measure out, 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Always gotta double check that I have the baking powder and not the baking soda. All right, so what you wanna do is you actually wanna sift these ingredients together. That's just gonna get rid of any lumps that are in the flour or in the baking powder. And of course I have a really small bowl here, so I'm gonna be really careful when I do this. There's a couple different ways you can sift. You can do it through a fine mesh sieve like this, or there are actual sifters that you can buy that they're probably super old fashioned. They have an actual crank that crank it around, and basically it's still just running it through a fine mesh sieve. So I like to have multi-purpose tools in my kitchen, and I find that a fine mesh sieve has lots of different purposes. So the only thing that's left in here now is kosher salt, so I'm gonna go ahead and dump that right in. And this flour mixture is all ready. Now what we need to do is melt together some milk and butter, and we actually need, I've got my recipe here because I don't have it memorized, but 3/4 cup of milk, and then we're gonna need 4 tablespoons of butter. I always use salted butter because it has flavor. To me, this is gonna be controversial. Let me know in the comments. But to me, unsalted butter is basically just like oil. To me, there's just no flavor. So salted butter it is. So we're gonna add in the 4 tablespoons of butter in there. I'm gonna pop it in the microwave for just 30-45 seconds to melt that butter. All right, that looks really good. The butter is all melted into the milk. So we're gonna add it into this flour mixture. This is one of the first tips when you're making homemade dumplings. Do not overmix this mixture. It's gonna look crazy. It's gonna look really craggy and lumpy. That's okay. So we're gonna pour in this butter and milk mixture into the flour. And we're just gonna lightly stir this until all the flour and the dry ingredients are wet. That's when you know it's time to stop stirring. And you just wanna do this by hand. You don't want to use a mixer or a stand mixer for this. This is just with a spatula or a kitchen spoon. That looks great. Craggy, lumpy, looks like a hot mess. It's gonna be delicious.
All right, that chicken stew has simmered for about 25 minutes, and the carrots and the celery are perfectly tender. So now we can start to move on with the recipe. First though, we want to remove those bay leaves that simmered in the broth. You don't want to eat those. Those are to discard. Now we're gonna add 3 cups of cooked and shredded chicken. One of my favorite ways to shred up chicken is to put the warm chicken in the bowl of a stand mixer, add the paddle attachment and run it for 25 to 30 seconds, and it shreds it perfectly. All right, now it's time to do the dumplings. You have 2 different ways you can do the dumplings. You can use 2 spoons like I'm doing here. Just spoon out about a tablespoon of the dumpling mixture and then literally drop it in. Don't worry about forming the dumplings perfectly. You want them to be craggy so that they start to soak up all of that juice. Also, resist the temptation to stir the dumplings at this point. You just want to drop them in and let the heat of the stew and the steam of the pot cook the dumplings. You're gonna have the best texture by doing that. Now let me tell you, I'll tell you this later, but I'm gonna tell you right now. I made my dumplings a little big on this day. They should be closer to a tablespoon in size, and you should get anywhere from 25 to 28 dumplings. I think I got 17 on this day, so do better than I did. Now you're gonna wanna simmer these dumplings covered in the pan for at least 15 minutes without disturbing them. That is one of the keys.
When you do your dumplings, they should be roughly this big when you're dropping them in. So I don't know, a little bit smaller than a ping pong ball, so about a tablespoon per dumpling. Your dumpling mixture should get you about 25 dumplings. I made mine a little big today. I think I did 17 or 18 dumplings in there. So I am gonna give them just a little bit more time to cook, probably about another 5 or 10 minutes to steam in the pot before we open up the lid and finish off the recipe. All right, I think that these have done their job. They look amazing. So what we're gonna do now is just very gently stir these to get them moved around the pot. Ugh, they look amazing. And I'm just gonna try and kind of flip these over so that they get wet on all sides. And you can see they kind of came out, you know, kind of craggy on the edges, which holds that chicken stew into the dumplings. So incredible. All right, but we're not done. So what we want to do is, this is already thickened up pretty nicely because of the flour that was in the dumplings, but we're going to take it to the next level because that's what we do. So I'm going to pour in 1 cup of heavy cream. Then we're gonna stir in 3/4 to 1 cup of frozen peas. You can, mine have thawed quite a bit here, but you can definitely throw them in straight frozen from your freezer, and the heat of the pot will warm them through perfectly. Give this just a little light stir. Then the buerre manie, the thickener that we made earlier, we're gonna go ahead and pop that in there as well. And that flour butter mixture is just gonna melt right into this. And what it's gonna do is thicken this up even further. So I'm gonna stir that in there, let that melt in. Then I'm gonna turn the heat up and let this simmer for about another 5 minutes. It's gonna thicken up a little bit more, cook the dumplings all the way through, and then we're gonna be ready to eat. It is complete and it is unbelievable. I can't even tell you how good this is. You literally have to make it to believe it. We take our chicken soup and chicken stew very seriously here at Mom's Dinner, and this one is no exception. The flavor of the chicken stew is so robust. That's the only word to describe it. It is so robust. It is, when you think of incredibly flavorful chicken soup or chicken stew, this is it. This is what you're gonna think of. It's incredible. So I've dished myself out just a little bit here and let it cool for a little bit because it was smoking hot when it came off the stove top. So I'm gonna take a little bite here. No. That chicken stew will bring a tear to your eye. That's how good it is. I think that I like mine with a little extra black pepper on top. On those dumplings, tender, delicious, perfect with the chicken stew. So I'm gonna keep eating. I don't know if I can wait for everybody else to have dinner with me. I really hope that you make this chicken stew with homemade fluffy dumplings in your kitchen. And if you do, please comment below and let me know how you liked them. Let me know how the tips and tricks worked out for you. And as always, I hope that this recipe helps you feel like a success at dinner time. Join me next week. See ya. Oh.